My entitled sisters demanded that I let them rent out my vacation home for profit. When I refused, let me tell you a story that starts with a dream and ends with a lesson. A painful one, but one I needed to learn. It's the story of how my sisters tried to hijack my peace, manipulate my emotions, and disguise their entitlement as family love. And how, for the first time in my life, I said no. I'm the oldest of three sisters. I'm 38 years old now, and my two younger sisters, Emma and Chloe, are 35 and 32. We grew up in a middle-class family in a quiet Oregon town, nothing flashy. My dad worked construction, and my mom worked nights as a nurse. We weren't poor, but we weren't comfortable either. From a young age, it became clear that I was going to be the responsible one. My parents leaned on me hard. I cooked dinner when mom was on night shifts. I got the girls ready for school when dad had early jobs. I helped them with homework, cleaned the house, and by the time I was 16, I was working at the local diner on weekends just to cover my own expenses. Meanwhile, Emma and Chloe were allowed to be soft. They had chores, sure, but if they forgot them, no one made a fuss. They had tantrums. I was told to be patient. They slacked off in school. I was told to help them study harder. I wasn't just their sister, I was their second mother, their unpaid babysitter, their emotional support system. That set the stage for the next 20 years of my life. By the time I graduated high school, I was desperate to leave. I earned a scholarship to a state university 3 hours away and never looked back. I worked through college, campus library, tutoring center, waitressing on weekends. No spring breaks, no Europe trips, no summer lounging, just grinding. Emma and Chloe, on the other hand, stayed home for a while. Emma went to a local college for a few semesters, then dropped out to figure herself out. She bounced between yoga teacher training, travel, and odd jobs for years. Chloe spent a few years working at a boutique, dated a string of boyfriends who never seemed to work, and eventually started an Etsy shop selling wire-wrapped crystals and earrings. I don't say this to judge. I'm proud of their creativity, but they never built the kind of stable, independent life I was working toward. Fast forward a decade. I got a job in tech, worked my way up the ranks, lived below my means, and after 15 years of work, I was in a position I never thought I'd be in, debt-free, with savings, and the ability to finally breathe. So I did something for myself. I bought a vacation home. It wasn't a palace. It was a 2-bedroom A-frame cabin near Lake Tahoe. Quiet, remote, wood-burning fireplace, a wraparound porch, and views of the pines that made me feel like I could finally exhale. I spent every other weekend there. Sometimes alone, sometimes with a book, sometimes hiking with my dog. It was the one place on earth that didn't demand anything from me. And for the first year, I didn't tell my family about it. Not because I was ashamed, not because I was hiding, but because I knew what would happen. When I finally mentioned it at Thanksgiving, it was exactly as I feared. We were sitting around the table. My dad had just finished a story about his neighbor's RV, and I casually said, "Speaking of getaways, I finally bought a cabin near Tahoe earlier this year." The room went quiet. Then Emma, bright, enthusiastic Emma, grinned and said, "Shut up, you bought a cabin? Like, your own house?" Chloe chimed in, "Near the lake? That's such a smart investment. You could totally Airbnb that and make bank." I smiled. I bought it just for me. It's not a rental, it's my little escape. But the seed had been planted. What followed over the next few weeks started small. Emma texted me asking if she and her friend could stay there one weekend while I wasn't using it. She framed it like a favor. "We'll take care of it, clean everything. We just want a little nature detox." I said no, politely, but firmly. Chloe messaged me a week later asking if she could use it for a product photo shoot. "It'd just be a day, you don't even have to be there." Again, I said no, kindly. That's when it escalated. They started sending me links to Airbnb listings in the area, highlighting the amazing earning potential. Emma sent me a spreadsheet she'd made in Google Docs titled Tahoe Rental Projection, with estimated revenue based on a 60% occupancy rate. Chloe sent me mock-up logos and said, what if we branded it as a retreat space? I told them, again, that I wasn't interested in turning my cabin into a rental. I had bought it for peace, not profit. They didn't like that answer. They started guilt-tripping me, subtle at first. Emma would say things like, must be nice to have the luxury of saying no to money. Chloe once texted, some of us don't have the privilege of sitting on a house that isn't working for us. Then came the group message. It was a full pitch deck. They had created a business plan called Three Sisters Retreats. They wanted to rent out the cabin, host wellness weekends, pop-up boutiques, maybe even Airbnb it in between. The plan assumed I would provide the property, cover the insurance, handle maintenance, and they would run the business. I didn't even respond right away. I stared at the document for a long time. I had said no, clearly, multiple times, and still they were acting like I owed them access. When I finally replied, I wrote a long message. I appreciate your creativity, and I'm glad you're thinking about new opportunities. But I've said before, and I'll say it again, my cabin is not for rent. It's not a business opportunity. It's not a blank canvas for projects. It is the only space in my life that is mine alone. I'm asking you both to respect that and not bring this up again. I didn't hear from either of them for several days. Then my mom called. You know they're hurt, right? She said. They feel like you don't trust them. I took a deep breath. This isn't about trust, Mom. It's about boundaries. She sighed. They just want to feel like you're still connected, that you're not leaving them behind. There it was again. The idea that I was obligated to share everything I earned simply because we were related. I let it go. For a while, things were quiet. Until 6 months later, I was at the cabin doing some minor repairs, repainting the deck railing, fixing a loose screen door, when I got a notification from a neighbor. It was a text from Don, the older gentleman who lived next door. Hey, saw a couple girls on your porch today, thought you had guests. I hadn't told anyone I'd be out of town that week. My stomach dropped. I checked the cabin's security camera feed, which I rarely used, and there they were, Emma and Chloe, on my porch, with bags, trying to open the lockbox I had installed for when I had a cleaner come by. I called them immediately. No answer. 5 minutes later, Chloe texted, we thought you said you weren't coming up this week. We were just going to stay a couple nights. The lock code doesn't work. Did you change it? I was stunned. I hadn't given them the code. They had either remembered it from a previous visit, one of the only times I'd invited them up, or guessed. I didn't reply. Instead, I changed the code, called my lawyer, and had a smart lock installed with a rolling code system. That night, I sent a final message. You entered my property without permission. That is a serious violation of trust and privacy. From now on, neither of you are welcome at the cabin. I will not entertain future requests or conversations about it. If this boundary is crossed again, I will pursue legal action. Emma responded with a 3-paragraph tirade about how I had forgotten what family means. Chloe posted a vague Instagram story about sisters who put money over love. And just like that, years of resentment, entitlement, and false affection came boiling to the surface. They didn't want a relationship. They wanted access. They wanted the perks of my labor without the work. They wanted to benefit from my boundaries being broken. It's been nearly 2 years since that day. We barely speak. Holidays are awkward. Group chats are dead. My mother still pleads for reconciliation, but I've told her clearly, until they apologize, truly apologize, not just for the cabin, but for years of manipulation and emotional blackmail, I'm not interested. And you know what? That cabin still stands. Every time I drive up the winding road, windows down, dog in the back seat, I feel a calm I never felt in my childhood home. It is mine, not because I paid for it, but because I protected it. Because for the first time in my life, I said no. No to guilt, no to obligation, no to being the family ATM, therapist, fixer, or resource. Just no. And here's what I've learned. Sometimes the hardest boundaries are the ones you draw with the people you love. But love without respect isn't love. And family without boundaries isn't family. It's ownership. You are allowed to have peace that you don't have to share. You are allowed to say, "This is mine," and you are allowed to walk away from those who don't respect that. I still believe in love. I still believe in family, but now I believe in myself more. And that cabin, it reminds me every single day that peace is earned, but it's also defended. So, if you ever find yourself where I was, torn between love and self-respect, remember this. You are not selfish for saying no. You are not cruel for needing space, and you are not wrong for protecting what's yours, even from your own blood, especially from them.